Going back to UFC 306, Sean O'Malley. We talked about it. We did the predictions. I wasn't overly confident. In the end, it was pretty close odds on that one going into the fight. But Merab Dvalishvili really does to Sean O'Malley what pretty much he's done to everybody. It's impressive. I mean, he's not as exciting as he's not a George St. Pierre type with his wrestling, and then you're looking at his elite athleticism, technique, just relentlessness, and everyone knows what's coming, and they still can't stop it, no matter how good they are. So the big question is there any case that can be made for a rematch? I know Sean O'Malley after the fight, he was talking about, he won rounds 1, 3, and 5. He hurt Merab late, and then it got a little interesting. But is there any case for Sean O'Malley, considering how big of a star he is, how UFC sometimes books? Should he get a rematch, or it was a definitive loss, and it's just you got to go somewhere else?
There's no way that you can make a legitimate case for an immediate rematch outside of being an accountant for the UFC. There's the only people that can sit there and say, hey, we need to make this fight happen. There was nothing in that fight that made me want to see it again. And quite honestly, it could happen again. O'Malley could very well fight himself back to a title. But that will mean he would have to prove himself yet again, and he'd have to take the route that a lot of people have done when they lost the belt, and they have to fight their way back into contendership, which would make for a more interesting buildup. I don't think you really can sell an O'Malley Dvalishvili 2 right now. You can't. Who wants to see that? The most entertaining part of it was when Dvalishvili kissed him. That was the most entertaining part, and not to point at Merab and call him a boring fighter or anything like that, but there was no sort of real suspense. It was just domination the whole way through. So no, O'Malley does not deserve an immediate rematch, and he didn't hold the belt long enough to even be brought up in that conversation either.
Is there a case that can be made from a business perspective that maybe Merab should kind of push for it? It'll get him a good payday again. He should have a whole bunch of confidence. He should win. Should maybe Merab kind of push for it? Because the options after that are not as box office as Sean O'Malley. What could 2 wins over Sean O'Malley do for Merab in his career and trying to get a lot of big paydays? Because he's not a young guy. He's starting to get there in the second half of his 30s. Should Merab push for it or no? He should go in another direction as well.
I mean, he is a prize fighter. Go for the biggest prize. And quite honestly, by what we saw at Noche UFC, that's probably the easiest matchup for him in the top 5. So go for it. I still don't want to see it, but that probably sells better than him and Umar Nurmagomedov, which is probably going to be next. That's probably going to be the next fight. So I guess, I mean, Merab is sort of in this weird spot where he's clearly better than the peers that he has fought so far, has the belt to prove it, and there's nothing really too exciting for him as far as what those pay-per-view points are going to look like.
Yeah. Well, from there, then, if it's Sean O'Malley's not going to be in a rematch, which I agree, it just doesn't make a lot of sense. Where should he go next? Should it be Corey Sandhagen? Should it be Peter Yan? Rematch Peter Yan, because they had a fantastic fight, a couple of years ago now. Should it be Henry Cejudo, who they've had this ongoing feud for a long time? This classic moment where Henry Cejudo was bothering him and heckling him during an interview that got caught on video and became this fantastic, the Office style meme and everything with Davis and Figueiredo in the background. All 3 of them after his loss kind of was calling for the fight. If it's one of those guys, which honestly they're all interesting fights, Sandhagen versus O'Malley is fantastic. A rematch with Yan I would have no problem against, although Yan is fighting Figueiredo now, unfortunately, so maybe he gets the winner of Yan Figueiredo, or Cejudo. That's a big name. That's a former champion. Where do you think he should go?
Man, as much as I'd love to see him and Sandhagen, I think that's probably the best just pure action fight that you can make for O'Malley right now. I think Cejudo's the route to go.
Okay.
The UFC is clearly wanting this guy to be the next big thing. They've made a very clear effort in putting him front and center and giving him the best looks and making sure a lot of marketing dollars are going his way. Henry Cejudo, I think, is the way to maximize that and hopefully boost him back up to where he's in position to fight for a belt. Because quite honestly, as fun as the Sandhagen fight looks like it could be on paper, I don't think that goes well for O'Malley. I think that's a tricky matchup for him. Jan, as if he did walk away with that win, but it was very controversial. Do you want to take that chance again? And then especially knowing that it's just going to lead to Jan versus Davishvili 2, another fight that while it may have some appeal to the diehards, like I don't think that's going to move too many units. So Cejudo is probably the guy. He's the guy with the biggest name value. He has the most decorated resume out of everyone that we've mentioned before, and I think presents perhaps the easiest stylistic matchup for him as well.
I think on a business level, I agree with you. Cejudo makes the most sense because if he loses to Corey Sandhagen, unfortunately for us diehard fans, we know how great Sandhagen is, but I feel like to a mainstream casual audience that follows Sean O'Malley, losing to him is like, oh, who's that guy? It helps Corey a lot. And I think that's why he wants to fight, because he knows he can win and it's big for his career. But for the UFC and their business, if he loses to Cejudo, he's a bit more of a mainstream. And if you can write it off as, oh, he lost to an Olympic champion who was a former 2-division champion in the UFC. Okay, well, there's no shame in losing that. And he loses to Jan. It's like, oh, again, Jan is kind of hit a bit of a slump the last few years, so his name value is taking a hit. So, yeah, I think Cejudo is the fight to go. And if he gets the win over Cejudo, it's like, oh, I beat Henry Cejudo, one of the great fighters of this generation, former 2-division champion, Olympic medalist, Triple C guy. It just bolsters his resume, even if Cejudo ain't the guy he was a few years ago because of that retirement. So yeah, I agree with you 1,000%.
I do think a matchup that we're not giving enough credit to right now for O'Malley that really could boost him back into the public consciousness is O'Malley defending his boy Aiden Ross and fighting some of the LA rappers that are very mad at him right now.
Oh, that's true. Those classics in the streets fights, those really hit.
He could go platinum on World Star. I could see that.
Yeah, the mixtape of fight booking. I like it.
Yeah, to see like the guy with the colorful hair, like fighting a bunch of Crips and Bloods in the streets of LA.
Yeah.
Maybe
we could bring back TV, Punk 2 or something.